Hello, Susan Echu here. It is special, like specially special because I have two amazing people in the studio with me, and today we are looking at what's love got to do with it. Leadership, what's got a love got to do with it, and that would be part two. And today we have with us Christabel and Pastor Christabel and Dr. Richard Ferry. Christabel is co-founder at Metropolitan Christian Center in Arlington, Texas. She is author of two very inspiring books on worship, Wrapped Within the Veil and The Solitary Journey of the Cult. Her next book, The Floored, is on the way. She is also a registered nurse by profession. She is a dynamic worshiper and teacher of the word who combines years of experience with the power of the Holy Spirit to transform the lives of people around the globe. She has a prophetic calling and was commissioned as one sent to the nations by God Himself. She organizes an annual conference that brings women together from all walks of life. She is founder of Prophetic Worship and Prophetic and Healing Ministries. She has been a speaker in many conferences in the United States and also internationally. Dr. Ferim is founding pastor of Metropolitan Christian Center in Arlington, Texas. He has led large groups of youths to organize crusades in several cities in Central Africa. He is a statistician who has served in many companies across the USA in building lasting statistical that word come on guys statistical forecasting models. He and his wife started a school in South Africa which is thriving for 3 years now. They have three amazing children who are serving with them in the ministry. With us in the studio, ladies and gentlemen, join me. Welcome, Pastor Christabel and Dr. Ferrin.
Hello.
Thank you, thank you, thank you,
Oh
Pastor
my
Susan.
goodness. Listen, guys, it's not been easy having these two, just to let you know.
Yeah, life
But
is so
yes,
busy.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Today we are looking at leadership. What's love got to do with it? And this is part two. We have Dr. Ferrim with us and Pastor Christabel Ferrim. Yes, we are so thankful that they were able to say yes to us. Aren't we grateful, guys? Can you say yes in the chat? Let's put it in the chat, all right? Put it in the comment. So we are so thankful that they were able to come to us and to speak with us on this very, very pertinent topic, leadership. What's love got to do with it? When you saw this topic, what was your impression? What were you thinking, Dr. Ferrin?
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to connect. Thank you to Dr. Ralph, a very good friend. And it's always a joy for me to connect with you both because I've known you people for so long. We've known you for so long. And it's always a pleasure to connect again with old friends and people who have kept the standards, followed the things of the Spirit and the Lord. We are pastors, so we talk the God language. So we've known you people for so long, and it's also so important to note that when you look at people's lives and you see the transition, the change from one level to a higher one, that you know that something significant is happening in their lives. So I've seen that in both of you, and I've sat under your classes and learned from you, and it blew my mind. I said, this is a completely different level. So thank you again for everything you do, the classes you teach, and the university, and everything you're doing all around the world. But when I heard about this topic, love, what does love got to do? Leadership, what does love got to do with this? I was actually thinking about the church. That's one thing I was thinking
Tell
about.
me
Then I
more,
was,
tell me more. Like how? How?
well, I was thinking mainly about my personal relationship with my wife, and how do we lead the church based on our relationship. That's the way I was looking at it. I know we also have other things that we do around where we lead in other aspects, but I was looking at myself personally and just thinking, okay, if you are calling a pastor up to talk, then possibly you want to know more about how we manage our businesses and the church, and how our personal relationship affects everything that we do out there. That's the way I was thinking about
And Pastor Christabel, did you look at the topic and like, what was your initial thought when you saw the topic leadership? What's love got to do with it? What did you think?
I thought a little different than he did, that what was going to come out of this was our relationship as a couple, personal leadership, and if what the role of love is in leadership. So in our marriage and leading one another and leading our families, what's the role of love in all of this? So most probably love with our children, love with our community, love for one another, and being able to lead right, love right, lead right.
Ooh,
That was my
ooh,
thought.
ooh. All right. Okay. Guys, did you hear that? If you're watching and you come to this point, I want you to put in the comments, love right, lead right. I just love it. Love right, lead. I'm taking notes. I don't know about you. I hope you finish your notebook. Lead right. And Pastor Christabel, you mentioned something about personal leadership that really caught my attention. Do you want to speak more into that, personal leadership whole situation and leading in the couple? How does that work?
I really do feel like every individual should be able to lead themselves right, to be able to lead other people. Now, before I go deep into personal leadership, I want to talk about servanthood. You cannot be a leader except you're a servant. So in a relationship, there needs to be this aspect of being able to serve one another. In a family, we should be able to serve one another. This is one thing we do with our children. I know we point to one differently from the other about being able to lay your life down for other people, being able to do good for other people, because that's a sign of somebody who's going to be a good leader. So anyway, talking about personal leadership now, to be able to be a good leader, or to be to have personal leadership in your life, you need to be able to take the aspect of a servant as as an individual. You can't lead other people right until you can understand who they are, what they're going through, and you also should be able to lead yourself in the things that you do in life, in your purpose, in your pursuit. And he said we are pastors, so we would bring the God aspect in it. In what God has called you to do, you should be able to lead yourself in that space before you can actually lead anybody else to any other space.
Wow. Okay. I have so many questions based on what you just said. It's so many questions. Um, let's go back to the servant leadership thing. You started going deep and then you stopped somewhere and you were like, oh,
Yeah.
let's come back to personal leadership. And I was like, oh, continue, continue. Did you want to go a little deeper into the whole servant leadership thing? And you talked about how you're teaching your children, about the whole servant leadership concept. And you said that you're not a leader if you're not a servant leader. Hmm, tell us more.
All right, so my master's is in leadership.
Okay.
And I just remember while I was in school, we did this course, Servant Leadership, and we looked at the Greenfield Institute of Servant Leadership and some of the aspects they spoke about, on leadership. And one of the greatest thing that caught my attention, I mean, it's not like I didn't know this, but it makes more sense when you do it as a course and you spend weeks doing the same thing, doing research. And one of the aspects of servant leadership is the leader being a servant first. And the reason for this is that if you don't know how to serve people, you can lead people. And my understanding of it is that you should be able to understand what people are going through. You should be able to be wear their shoes or walk in their shoes, to know how you're going to lead them through projects, through processes, and through life. So servant leadership is, to me, is the only leadership that every leader, be it a president, be it a CEO in a company, be it a pastor in a church, being a teacher, be it a mother in a home, should carry, should embrace, to be able to lead people. Now, as a nurse, this is something I saw a lot while I worked at the hospital. We used to take really good nurses because they were good, they were nice with patients, they were great with patients and their families, and we made them leaders. And when they became leaders, they didn't do very well. They didn't do well because they were not great leaders, they were just great nurses. And so we looked at some aspect of their greatness, and then we brought them to lead a people they didn't understand. If you're not able to walk in their shoes and understand the intricacies of what their issues are, what their life is, you cannot lead them. You can't.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
you can't.
So they were very good as professionals in their
Yes.
field, and
Yes.
that did not necessarily mean they were called to leadership or
Exactly.
that they were qualified or that they were ready to
Ready
actually
for leadership.
lead.
Yes.
So that was a whole different ball game altogether, dealing with people and leading people.
Right. You're right.
Wow.
You're right.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because the fact that you experienced that in your field, there should be other fields and other people who are experiencing the same situations.
Right.
And Dr. Ferim, servant leadership, we're looking at the home. What does this whole leadership thing got to do with love?
Well, I think when it comes to the setting of the home, we parents have been called to lead.
Yes.
We have been called to lead our families. There's a whole new generation that is looking up to us.
Yes.
I know most of the times when we were growing up, and even after we became old, our first reference was our parents. Those are the people that set the bars for us.
Right.
You can go out there and see what every other person is doing, but what you see on a day-to-day basis is extremely important.
Right.
And what your parents model for you. I am one of those people that build models. And models mean we take data and then we play with the data, and we look at different characteristics of that data, different what we call variables. And when you look at all of those variables for a particular observation, you are able to predict what will happen to all of those observations that have those particular variables. So that's a model, and it is very precise. And I know sometimes you look at things and you say, oh, you did this and that, you come from here and there and this and that, and then you try to stereotype. That's a little bit different now. But when you have all of these characteristics for a given observation, there's always a way you can predict their outcome. So these things are things that are already embedded in us. When you live in a home and you have values that have been embedded in you by your parents, there's a way that we can predict how far you can go in life, because you have espoused some certain characteristics, some certain values you carry with you. Those are the things that permit you to go very far. So
let's come down to your couple. Let's come down to your marriage experience. You talked about these variables. Listen, me and Matt, I'll just leave it there, right? I'll leave it there. But those that had ears already heard. Okay. But let me bring it down to my understanding, and I hope I got it right. So it's like these variables are able to create models. So these variables are like patterns that help us to predict what is going to happen. So like
Exactly.
in your couple, what are some variables that or models that you're putting in place that are determining certain that are helping to predict certain things that are happening in your couple? Tell us about your journey. How did you begin? Have you always been this sweet couple that people know? Have you had any challenges? Or, I mean, miracles do happen. You, you've just
What
had this
love got to
small.
do?
What's love got to do?
That's what you just said. What's
What's
love
love got
got
to
to
do?
do?
Okay, okay. Tell us
So,
about.
so I,
Looks like we
can
lost
you hear
you.
me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we're waiting for you to come up. Oh,
I'm
Okay,
wonderful.
ready.
she's back on.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
Yes. So the question was, tell us about some of the variables
Yeah, the
No
variables in your
in our
home
relationship.
and in your relationship.
Yes,
How did you begin, and how has leadership been a part of your growth as a couple, and how has that helped you to be who you are right now, the respective leaders that you are in your communities
okay,
and beyond?
wonderful. So I think that this year, December, makes us 20 years of
Mm,
being together in marriage.
yep.
It's a very long time. So we thank the Lord for keeping us together, and I know so many people are facing challenges in marriage, divorce left and right. But we thank the Lord for keeping us together. 20 years is not small.
Mm,
It's not 20 days. And if I were to talk about some of the variables, there might not be too many of them, but let me start off with saying friendship should be a very strong variable. You should be friends with your spouse. I mean, you have to have somebody that you can talk to, somebody that you feel comfortable in their presence, somebody that you can share your heart with, and not somebody that you don't really want to be with, or you just want to be with them for a short time, or you don't feel like coming home. Is so important. And I think even before getting into a relationship, it's important that you first be friends with that person. So many people, they look at the person that they want to be with, and they are just caught up with the outward appearance and other things. That you need to start off by building that friendship relationship.
mm,
And once that is in place, it's not about any lustful attraction. Sometimes you get into those things and then you forget the basics.
Mm,
Because when you get together in the arena of marriage, there are just so many things. There's 24 hours a day. What are we going to be talking about? What are we going to be doing? If there's no friendship there, it's extremely challenging. I
mm,
feel like that is one of the very important aspects. There's the God factor, where you have the same beliefs, the same
mhm.
values. Or does this person want to go party in a club that you want to go to church? Or maybe they want to do their own thing, you want to do your own thing. I think it's important that even before you get together with somebody, the kind of values that they espouse, you should be fully aware of that. Otherwise, when you get together in the confines of marriage, there's going to be great clashes.
mm,
So friendship, values, and I think again, just making life simple. Um, so many people come in with high standards, but we need to learn whether we are up or down, to accept our condition and to give praise to God.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Pastor Christabel, you talked about needing to know the people to be able to lead them, needing to
Mm-hmm.
know the people to be able to love them right and to lead them right. In your
Yes.
couple, how has that played the whole leadership situation and learning to understand your spouse and maybe the other members of your family, like your children? Do you want to speak a little bit more into that?
Yes. I'm going to bounce off of what he just spoke about, friendship. Being friends in a relationship or before a relationship is important because I feel like a lot of people who are getting married these days are getting married for pressures that they feel, certain things that is in society. I've seen women who said, everybody else is married. My friends are all married. I'm not married. I'm not fulfilled. I mean, I have to state that it's not marriage that brings fulfillment. Not just marriage. There's so many other things. Because I also know people in marriages who just can't stand it, who need to be out, who need to get out of it, like yesterday. So that friendship, um, it helps you know the next person, helps you know who you're going. Now, as well as we know, because we know you're married, that no matter how long your courtship was, you came into marriage and you're like, oops, did I miss this one? What's this aspect that he's showing now or she's showing now that I didn't know about? As friends, you have to be able to be tolerant and to tolerate a lot of things that you're going to meet, that you're going to find in marriage. Now, if it was two people led to leave alone with all the things that they needed in place, I'm wondering how many issues we would have. But we get married and we're going to face issues together. We should be able to understand how one person functions under pressure to be able to work well with them. Because in marriage, leadership is, we base this off of the Bible that says that a man is, the head of the wife and as Christ is head of the church. But we also know that it calls for submission of one another. But leadership is in two tiers in a relationship. The first tier is the man being the head, leading us where we need to go, and us being able to follow. And the second part of it is us being able to lead one another. So the
Wow.
same man who is the leader being able to say, you know what, I'll submit to that idea. As my wife, you brought it in. That's not something I'm very strong in. So when you bring it in, I'm gonna walk in line with it. Being able to work with one another to get to the final goal. Eventually, you have children. That's even the biggest shock. They were not there at the beginning when you were courting. You don't know their character types. You don't know what they're going to pick. Because as well as we do that, a child gets traits from their mom, their dad, their grandparents on both sides. So you don't know what's coming. You don't know which one they're going to pick, which one they're going to present. So you should be able to work with each other, understand each other, know their traits. Sometimes we even need to know our in-laws. Hey, we need to know them, know that this is how they react to certain things, the ones that are alive for as much as we can, because then we start seeing aspects of their character in our kids. And so we'll be able to lead them right, understanding that the kids don't pick their traits. The traits come with the package. And so they too may struggle with the things that they face in life and the kind of traits that they carry. And we should be able to understand them and lead them through. I want to say something also about, spouses in a relationship like this. I guess we're going to get into stuff like this, but we have seen when we've had challenges that you need to just understand where the other person is coming from by who they are, because we don't face challenge, we don't not accept, view or address challenges the same. He is more laid back, I'm more feisty. So when things happen, I get all, let's, no, why? And he takes it back. He's a model builder, right? So to everything there's a model, to every model are variables. So he wants to look at the variables, and I am just like, no, let's fix this, let's move on. What's love got to do with it? You got to love, you got to know to be able to lead.
Wow, wow, wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we have in the studio Dr. Ferim Richard and Pastor Christabel Ferring, who are giving us nuggets, gems of leadership, gems of love, and helping us to understand leadership, what's love got to do with it. And we are learning from Dr. Ferring about building models. Like to me, everything has to be predictable. And for us to arrive at where we want, including this love
Yeah,
relationship, we have to have the variables in place so that we
exactly.
can be sure that we get the models that we are looking for.
That's
What
right.
models, hey friends, what models have you put in place in your love relationship, and what models do
Mm.
you, what patterns, what variables do you need to put in place to be able to get the kind of relationship that you really desire? And they both have told us about friendship, being a vital part of this relationship. They've told us about values, and what values do you run by. I think those are some of the variables. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, they are,
exactly.
they
Yeah.
Yeah.
are. And they've told us
Yeah.
about making life simple and not complicating it. They've told us about being tolerant and understanding that hey, we are all different, and we come with different packages. And what's love got to do with it? How do we lead ourselves? Dr. Ferrin, how can personal development affect this whole love relationship? Self
Mm.
leadership. What does it have to do with the love relationship and leadership in the home?
Well, I think when the Bible says that the head of the family is the man, that means the man needs to lead. And for you to lead, you must be able to know the way. So you need to develop yourself. If you are at the same level as every other person, then you are not a leader.
Mm.
If you cannot bring in something extra to the table, then you are at the same level as your wife, as the children, and you don't know where you are going to. So the man should be able to have a vision in life, be able to articulate that, be able to come sell that vision to his family and tell them, hey, this is where we are going to. So for you to be able to lead, it takes an extra development on your part. Last week, I was teaching at Bible studies, and I said there needs to be a leadership gap between those that lead and those that are led.
Mm.
In other words, those that lead must be a step ahead of those that are being led. So how does that happen? Is when you study, is when you develop yourself, is when you read books, is when you pray more than the other people. You are ahead of the game. So that is extremely important. And when you do that, then you are able now to come and, you know, pull your family up to your level. It needs to be done constantly. That's what the head means. So let me put it again as a pastor to say we are facing a crisis in the church and in the world. Why? Because if you look at the pattern where the Bible says in First Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3, it talks about the man being the head. Well, it talks about Christ being the head of the man, and then the man being the head of the woman, and then the family follows. The crisis that we are facing is that we have so many men that have abdicated their role of following Christ
Mm.
at the expense of their families. Now is the women. You go to churches, you see 80% of churches are made up of women, 90%, and the men, Sunday maybe they sit back in their homes, sleeping, watching football, and all of that. There's really nothing on the part of many men that propels them to seek after Christ, who is supposed to be the head of the man, and then pull their women.
Mm.
For you to be able to lead that family, you need to follow Christ, and then Christ helps you to be a better leader. So that there's that vacuum that I'm seeing in many circles. Men want to watch football, they want to play football or soccer on Sunday, or maybe they want to just watch a match and things like that. And there's nothing deep within them that calls them to a higher place of spirituality, which ought to be. So even as you develop yourself in the secular, in studying, in improving yourself spiritually is even much more important for the man to pursue hard after the things of God and after the things of the spirit. And when you are strong spiritually, I think you will be able to carry your family to the next level.
Wow. So it's like finding that balance in everything that you
Mhm.
do. And as you strive to develop in other areas, you're telling us that it's also important. And you're telling us from the perspective of a pastor that it's also very important to take the spiritual side of life very importantly. Pastor Christabel, do you want to speak with us about the importance of personal development and self leadership in the family space? How does this work? And how necessary is this?
Um, Growing up, they used to tell us something about still water. That if water is stale for a while, it breeds mosquitoes, it breeds algae, it breeds things we don't like. Nobody can drink it, you can use it, it's good for nothing. I believe that a lot of people think that marriage, so relationships, is an attainment, and that after that, there's nothing else to do. I don't believe that. I believe that a relationship should grow and the individuals in a relationship should grow also. And so personal development has to do with he's gone to the higher things. I'm coming to the simple things. Simple things such as how you dress. Many of us dress differently before we got married. There's something I say often at church. I say most, if not all Sundays, if when I dress up, I ask my husband, "Do you think this is how does this look? You think it's good?" He may tell me, no, 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 no. There are aspects of your body that are protruding. So change. So I change. Or he may tell me, oh, today he told me that's simple. And I told him, well, I'm going to add something on it. And so it's going to be as good as you like. We need to develop the little aspects of our lives, how we place our faces, how we brush our teeth, how we put our makeup, how we step, the face you make when you go into a hall. He often tells me when you go somewhere before we reach, when you get there, greet people. And I'm like, why? He's like, just keep the right face and greet people. My normal self wants to go find a chair and sit until the occasion is over. He wants to go to each table and talk to each person. That is hard for me because that's not, but I'm developing that area for myself. That's not even school. It doesn't cost money. I just need to listen and build that aspect. And at least, because for one thing, people think maybe I'm snobbish, maybe I'm not nice. It's not like that. It's just it's something I don't know how to deal with. I may be on a camera and talking. There's nobody here. It's just him. I can talk all I want, but when there's many people, I can't do all that together and talk to each person. So we need to work in the smaller aspects, of how we place our faces, how we respond to people. There's something he tells me also. I'm using my examples because I don't want to go off of, I'll say another example, but I want to use myself because there are aspects of response also where he tells me you're responding. I guess most women do this. He says I'm responding too loud or I'm not listening. I'm talking before I listen. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with that? Like, that's what I should do. You said something. And although I'm loud, that's just who I am and that's how I speak. And so learning to develop the area of listening first and then talking maybe a little slower in a relationship helps with the leadership that the man gives the woman, or vice versa. It could be the other way, because it could be a man who is rash or too quiet, or who doesn't say anything, or who doesn't take aspects of what you bring up as serious. Those things have to be done. So we need to develop the areas that we have faults in. We have to develop the areas where we're lacking in. Someone said, marriage today at church, they were talking about Mother's Day and all that. And the preacher was saying that, marriage is for complementing. He said that when God made man, God made everything else and said it was good. And when he made man, he said, That's not good. It's not good for, so he said it's not good. So he made a woman to complete the goodness. And so he was talking about, completion in marriages, and that, as much as a man is analytical and builds models and uses variables, a woman is emotional and reads into aspects of things that a man would never know. And so what does a man have to do is to build a certain level of emotional intelligence, and the woman also has to become a little bit more analytic for us to complete each other. I read two books a few years ago, some years ago, and one of them was Leadership Lessons from the Life of Christ, and the other one was Jesus CEO. I don't know if you've ever read those. Those are old books, if you can find them. But it shows you how Jesus, being the King of Kings, was able to come, be kind, but also be firm, be fair, but also make sure that everybody was doing what they're supposed to do. And how he took 12 rustic men and changed them into something so beautiful and changed the entire world. Beautiful
Wow.
thing. So he developed them. They had to change some things. Peter had such a temper. He had to change it. Matthew was funny with money. He had to change it. We need to change some aspects of ourselves to be able to make relationships work, no matter if it's a marriage or workplace.
Wow, wow, wow. I like how you use those personal examples, and I was just very curious, like, hey, you're talking about, personal examples in your couple, and I was curious, like, did Dr. Ferim Richard have to make adjustments based on your relationship as well? Or it's just you making all the changes? He says this is not right and you change it, and this is not okay,
I
and you
make the
work on it.
adjustments all the time, all the time.
And I'm like, wait. Do you want to share any of those examples? Because we are here to learn, and because when people see you on the screens, on the stages, they think, oh, you're all that, but when we bring these challenges out there, it lets people know that we are as human as you, but we have chosen to not settle
Mm-hmm.
in
Exactly.
the place of the mediocre. We have chosen to climb up the ladder
Right.
of growth. We have chosen to have a better marriage. We have chosen
Right.
to have a better couple.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of those situations, if you have any, we don't know, that maybe your wife has helped you to grow in? Has she been instrumental in any way?
Every man has their personal challenges.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a whole bunch of things that the women will come up and say, hey, we want this to be different. you know I used to teach at University of Texas in Arlington, and my table used to be very loaded with books, pile upon piles, and sometimes she would come there and arrange them for me. Then maybe after about a month, they will all be the same as she met them earlier on. Then I went somewhere, I read an article that said when you're very smart, you can be very disorganized. So I was comforted. I said, this is normal behavior, but it is not. So there's always this thing of, this
So
thing is
did you
supposed to
do
be
anything
here.
about it? Did you do anything about it that you think that it was an
Mm-hmm.
area of growth for you?
Well, I think those are things that we struggle on every day. Sometimes you get up and you say,
No, we
okay,
are not
before she
talking about
comes
we.
home,
We are talking about you right now, Dr.
about
Ferrin.
me.
You,
Okay.
it's you. So tell us about you. Don't talk about we. Like
Let,
all these generalizations. I've just been sitting here and I'm like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
what is all this general talk?
let, let,
Tell
let,
us about
let
you.
me land. Let me land. So
Okay.
this is what basically I do. For me, it's not a problem, and I know for her it is. So I try to be conscious to say, okay, let's put this thing here, let's put this there, let's be organized.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? Sometimes when she goes on a trip, mission trip, something, it becomes a free day. And we say, oh, let's have fun now. Then when she's coming back, I make sure everything is in place. But back in the back of my mind, it's always like, okay, what is she thinking about this? Maybe I should put this in place, put that in place, put this here and there. So we keep putting in the efforts, trying every single day.
Right.
You know, it might not mean much to me, but it means much to us.
Yes,
So
it does.
we need to make sure that it's working for both of us.
It is
Something you just said. You said at the back of your mind, you're
Yes.
thinking, "What is she thinking about this?"
Yes.
I love
Yes.
it. You
Yes.
are thinking, "What is she thinking about this?"
Yes.
I just love it, because I just think that if spouses, couples would just ask that question within themselves, what is he thinking about this? It will help
Yes.
a lot, and Pastor Christabel talked about different
Yes.
personalities and women and how, it's cultural constructs, that men are not emotional because, hey, they tell us all the time, go to the stadiums when there are football and soccer and stuff, and find out who are those yelling the most and
Oh
making
yeah,
those noise. It's the men.
you
It's
are
because
correct.
yes, sir. Society has said, "Oh, men don't cry, men don't do this."
Yeah.
So, one of the ways that I discovered that we can grow is to break out of some of those molds and just be authentic.
Mhm.
And just be
Yes.
authentic. And as far as personality traits and so on, high eyes, like the disc personal, I am a disc consultant. People who are high eyes and high D's, like if you have that
Mhm.
combined, they are
Mhm.
loud. They are loud,
Mhm.
and that's just who they are. And
Yeah.
it's a gift. That loudness, that strength, it's a gift in itself. But
Right.
everything that's overdone
Yeah.
becomes,
Yeah.
it becomes a
Wonderful.
trouble. So
Yeah.
we are
Mhm.
always looking for that balance, because even,
Exactly.
like if you're high S, like if you have C and S, that
Mhm.
combination, you would be somebody that is maybe slow and, low in your tone, but
Mhm.
everything that's overdone could become an issue, because then
Yes.
Sure.
if you need to
Yeah.
make decisions and you're not making those decisions when you need to make them, that becomes a challenge. So
Yeah.
it's about
Mhm.
understanding who we are and just bringing that balance, whether we are male or female. And I was curious, have you ever had any challenges in your couple, and how did you I'm coming to Dr. Pastor Christabel first, then I'll come to Dr. Perry. um, how did you navigate those challenges? I mean, anything that you can share with the public. Of course, I know in every couple there is things you can tell people, there is things
Mhm.
it's just you can't, that way, but if you find that it's something you can share with us, and you have a way of sharing it with us, that would help, bring value to people. What have you experienced, and how did leadership play in that situation, and where are you now with that, Pastor Christabel?
So we are not originally from the U.S. We are from sweet old Cameroon in West Africa. And so coming to a new reality, there was just too many challenges in a nation where we didn't have children to start with. We had to adjust to being married and then work our way through school, and we were in school at the same time, and then finish school, and then children, and then mix up all this stuff. So we've had challenges, especially challenges with balancing ministry, work, and family life.
Mm.
See, we live in a place where you don't have a plethora of family members who just come in and drop in to help. They stay with you. They at your beck and call. So we've had major challenges with balancing. Dealing with separating ministry, work, and family. And I've known that, as my kids have grown, we were there for them, but we were there for them in the tightness. And he would, I'm sure he will speak more to this, in the tightness where how our African communities are here. There's a waykeeping here. You have little kids, you carry them with you. There's no, you go around everywhere just doing things, and it used to have a toll on us. You are super tired when you come home, and every little thing that comes up just ticks you off because you've spent 12 hours working. You come home, you have to run to some community event, but then that's not the end of it, because there's also church, and there's church members who are going to call, who need, your attention, and all of that. And you still have family back home. There's also financial demands on there. It's just a lot of things, and you want to develop yourself. You go to school, you don't want to end somewhere, you want to continue to be, so we faced a lot of that. And I was saying that as my kids were getting older, they started saying, why don't we do this and why don't we do that? Why don't we travel like other people? And you continuously tell them we would, and they're getting older, and they're thinking, we maybe it's the Africanness in us, because they bring it up all the time. African parents, and the Africanness in us, and church, and just all of these things. And it takes a lot to be able to make sure all these things work in homeostasis, in a good balance, where everything has just the right amount of time it needs, to walk through. And what we've done is, we sometimes we shared roles. So if you do this for this kid, and I do this for this kid, and you do this part of the dropping off, and I do this part of the picking up, and we forcefully add a time when we're going to have to go out and eat, because we're African again, we can cook at home, good food. There's no need to go to a restaurant. And so we've had to balance all these things with work, and there are times when we've had to call other people to help us. But as the kids have started growing, and the community has gotten larger, we've had help, and we've also had the kids helping us. And we too have decided, okay, there are times we just need to stop, because we're not the first ones to do this. Other people have done this. We need to just stop and be able to take care of us, because these things don't stop. Ministry gets bigger. We have work in South Africa. I do stuff in Cameroon. So we keep going. So we're learning to stop and actually plan things ahead of time. Planning has helped us in a big way.
Wow, wow. Thank you for sharing. As you were talking, two concepts came to my mind: self-care and time together. Self-care, time together. Self-care and time together. And amidst your busyness, you were able to figure that out and factor it in. So looking at the time, listen, if you're watching, we want you to put in the comments, like, what are you getting from this? What are you learning from this? What is inspiring you? What is building you up? What is helping you to see life differently? Put it in the comments. Dr. Ferim, what are the must-haves? I know you've told us some of them already. You've talked about friendship, values, making life simple from your wife, and being tolerant. What are the must-haves? Did you miss anything? Do you want to add anything to that? The must-haves in a couple, so couples continue to thrive, because we see things, and even people who call themselves God people, who go to church. The man goes to church, the woman goes to church, but they come back home and it's a whole different life. I was having a conversation with a lady. I was, thank God the counseling was successful, and she sent me a beautiful note, and everything is fine now. But 6 years of marriage, on the verge of divorcing and all of that. But they come back to church and they're yelling at each other, and she was just shocked, like she couldn't believe that they were doing this. They just needed that help, and I'm grateful that we were able to be that help for them, and they are enjoying their couple right now. But what are some of those must-haves that can help people, whether they go to church or they don't go to church? Because these principles, they work for everybody. If you work them right, they work for you, So what are some of those must-haves?
Well, let me speak when it comes to the man. I know there was a day that you and your husband, I suppose it was both of you, you came to our house, and probably you were not listening, but he made mention of something which has really stuck with me. Dr. Rav, he said, your wife is the most important woman in your life.
Oh.
And I know it doesn't sound like a deep truth, but it is. And when it comes to some of us that do ministry, you have people all around you. You have to interact with this. This one comes up and shows as though, oh, I'm going to help. I'm going to be better. I'm available to do this and that. And sometimes you really need to be careful. Why do we have all of these challenges? Is because sometimes we look at ourselves, compare ourselves with others, and then we say, I could have had something better. And then we begin to forget that the best that we have is in our homes.
Wow.
So for me, that stuck really deep, to know that among all the women in the world, whether they are 3.5 billion, the woman that you have next to you, that you signed that thing with, should be the most treasured and the most valued. And when you start off with that, it's going to help you a lot. So for so many people, we are in a generation where you sit back there and you have all of this sea of information that is coming from the internet and from TV. And each time in the back of your mind, you are thinking, oh, I could get a better model. I could get model 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0. I'm just tired of this thing. There's something better there for me out there. And then you abandon, and then you go out for something else. So we need to come to that place where we accept what we have been blessed with. It might not be the perfect thing that we have. We cannot change them sometimes, but we need to accept them and say, this is God's gift to me, and embrace it. So I think that's so important for us men, because most of the times the challenge comes from men. 85% of divorces are orchestrated by women. It means many women are not satisfied with their relationships, or maybe the men are not standing up to the standard that they are supposed to be. So God needs to help us to be able to rise up, accept the gift that he has given unto us, in spite of the flaws, the shortcomings, the mistakes. There's a command in the Bible. It says, men, love your wives as Christ loved the church. So how did Christ love the church? The church had mistakes and errors and flaws and shortcomings. But Christ still loved the church. So our love for our wives should be really deep. Our commitments should be very profound. And when we do that, I think it's the beginning of something great.
Wow. So from all of these, to summarize, I think I got deep love and strong commitment. Deep love.
Yes. So some
and being grateful for what you have.
For what you have. Sometimes there's all of these things. People tell you, oh, give me 7 steps to a divorce-proof marriage and 10 steps to protecting your marriage and so on. But we are still seeing all of those high divorce rates. 1 out of every 2 marriages, they still end up in divorce. At the bottom of it is deep within you. Do you want to be with this person or not? Do you love them or not? It's a command for you to love and to stay with them.
Yeah.
So it's so important at the end of the day.
Wow. I saw you shaking your head, Pastor Christabel, like you're like, yeah, that's my man. He's just saying it. Yeah.
That's true.
So what are those must-haves in a relationship that is going to thrive and stand the test of what's happening? I mean, there is everything happening out there, AI pictures and fake life on the online and everything, and model 2.0, like Dr. Prince said, when he was talking, I was just thinking, even if you are the greatest engineer, and you can help your wife to look good and dress good and all of that, she still remains basically who she is. She
Mhm.
cannot be somebody else. So
Yeah.
that brings us back to you loving her
Mm.
as she is, and knowing that she is on a journey of growth, and understanding that you are also on a journey of
Yeah.
growth, and
Mm.
accepting her and accepting yourself too,
Right.
the way
Yes.
you are. So, Pastor Christabel, what are some of those must-haves
In
that
a
we can leave
relationship.
our audiences with?
Um, he mentioned something about it, but I want to say this over and over.
Mhm.
Other people's reality and not our reality. I could
Yes,
say this like 10 times.
right.
Because we are in a world of social media. So when I was growing up, our parents didn't have something to use to flaunt their relationship, except they went to a country meeting where everybody sat and said, "Oh, you have new rapper today," and stuff. Today, even what we don't want to see, we see on social media, and that affects a lot of people. See, I love to travel. I'll give an example. There's a lot of people who have a road trip and they say we're in Cancun, we're in what other places? Bora Bora, we're in Paris, France,
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. And a woman can be moved by this to say, why is my husband not taking me to these places? Traveling does not make a perfect marriage. Going to Bora Bora does not make a perfect marriage. In fact, your perfection could be at your back porch with a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and peace. We have to be careful about what's put out there and what we see. Because what we see, you know this because we counsel people, and it's not what we see that really matters. Is when they tell you the Crocs, you're like, so you mean the last thing you guys were in with huggy pictures, you guys were actually breaking up and you're fooling the whole world. So we need to learn to make our reality our own reality. It's not the people who front that have what other people have. It's not necessarily what you need to have, so you need to build what you have inside of you and make sure that you're stable. Worry about your own relationship and the children. You must have some internal voices that speak to you and say, work this fairy, because we're not HUs, we're fairies. That's who we are. The actual reality would never make sense to the Pharaohs. Never, ever, ever. So we need to make sure that we look at things that way. Don't look out. Look in. Make sure that what's in is in. A leader must also learn to be led. That I think we keep saying leadership, you lead this way. Leaders also have to have their own leaders over them. So in a marriage, I could be my husband's leader as much as he's my leader too. We need to be able to lead one another to where we're going to. Because there are times where we have itchy eyes, dry eyes, we don't see where we're going. The person who is standing behind can look and say, are you sure? We've gone too far in this way, but let's turn around. Because I feel like, we should be able to be led, reciprocity in our leading. um, Another thing is content. We have to be contented. Godliness with contentment is great. Contentment is great gain. A marriage that has contentment will take us far. What we're looking, he mentioned something about what somebody else has and that you may not have that thing. Sometimes you're thinking that is the next best thing that's good for you. The woman with a certain structure is better for you, not necessarily. Or a woman who speaks a certain way is better for you, or who walks a certain way, who carries herself. Maybe your reality is just not so real because you haven't put so much effort to make it the reality it needs to be. We need to be contented in who we are. Be contented in your marriage. If you're watching us, be contented in your marriage. Yours is the best. Now, if things are off, do the homework you need to do to make it work. Don't look outside.
Woo! Did you all hear that? Pastor,
Yeah.
Pastor Christabel and Dr. Ferrim throwing pearls all over the place. And
Mhm.
from your last intervention, Pastor Christabel, what I
Mhm.
got, look in, not
Yeah,
out.
don't look out.
Because your reality is unique and you want that unique experience to be a
Mhm.
beautiful one. And you
Yeah.
also talked about leaders being able to be led, and even in the couple, it can be
Yeah.
reciprocal. And
Yeah.
leaders have to learn to be led, because that is what good leadership is all about. And we have to be contented in the couple and do the work. You said, do the
Right.
work. I heard you loud and clear. Do the work. Make it
Yeah.
what you want it to be. Hey, we are there. It's like the top of the hour.
Yeah. Wow.
There are
That
people
was
that
quick.
yeah, there are people that are going to come watch this just because they saw Dr. Ferrim Richard. And there are people that are going to come watch this just because they saw Pastor Christabel Ferrim.
It's wonderful.
Leadership. What's love got to do with it? What would be your last words, Pastor Christabel Ferrim?
Last words. What's love got to do with it? Everything. Love has everything to do with it. I'll tell you this. We can pretend all we want. You can't lead the people you don't love. For you to lead your little team at work, you should have a certain level of compassion for them. For you to lead your spouse, you should have a great level of compassion for them. Most of what Jesus did upon the earth was lead a people who were going astray. And scripture says that he was moved with compassion. And then he did this. And then he did that. Love has everything to do with it. You can't say, oh, leadership is just for your office, it's for the workplace, it's for the marketplace. Leadership is also for the love relationship. You can't just love and not be led. You can't just love and sit in one place. You have to grow. So love has everything to do with leadership in marriage, because even marriage has to grow.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I love how you put it. I love how you put it. Last words for our audiences, Dr. Ferrim.
Yeah, we live in a very challenging society. I had one of my friends who come back from work and would just stay in his car for 30 minutes, not wanting to go into his home, just because he wasn't sure of what he was going to meet there. I mean, the atmosphere. So I think it's so important for us to be able to just build that love relationship at home, that stress-free environment that helps us, men, women, that when you come out from being stressed out there, you want to rush back home and just relax and enjoy yourself. It takes the responsibility of both the man and the woman to be able to build that kind of atmosphere.
Right.
When the
Right.
atmosphere is right, the man wants to be home, the woman wants to be home, the children feel wonderful even staying in that house, and they grow up with the right mindset and they are able to succeed in life.
Right.
You know, so love is a very important aspect in everything that we do. Now, when you look at homes where there's just a woman without the man, a lot of the kids struggle. When you have that balanced man and woman and they love themselves, that the kids that thrive.
Foundation.
So it's so important for us to be able to have that at the back of our minds, that this thing is not just between two of us. It's
Posterity.
for the entire family, and we are able to affect our community when we keep a home that is full of love.
Wow. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of today's show. Let us know how what has this meant to you? Put it in the comments and we'll see you in the next episode.
For your corporate and personal needs.
Leaders World Institute, changing lives, one leader at each